Hello and welcome to another podcast episode. My name is Michelle Chung. Today we're going to be talking about breaking out of dependent relationships. So, if you feel like you keep attracting the same kind of guys over and over and having the same kind of relationships where you feel stuck and you're not growing or changing, and you're depending a lot on the other person to give you love and fulfillment and worth, you're going to love this episode. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and yeah, let's see what happens. Hey, my name is Michelle Chung, and I'm a live manifestation expert, which means I help women manifest their soulmate live in person, offline. And I help career driven A type alpha women find their man so they can have the amazing, committed, and effortless relationship they deserve. Cool. So I really wanted to record this episode because I've recently been watching on Netflix a TV series called The Maid. And at first it was a bit hard to get into, but I I don't know, I was intrigued by this, and it's was, I guess, showing a very different kind of relationship. And I've never been through this kind of relationship myself. But I know that a lot of women have been, and it's really real, and it really touches on some very serious topics in our society today about women and being in these dependent relationships or coming from a low socioeconomic background and not having and coming from broken homes, basically. So these are some very serious topics today, and I was hesitant to record it at first because I'm not sure how deep I wanted to go into this particular topic because I'm not a therapist, and but I do know the value of seeking help, professional help. That you definitely need the help of others, because if you are in this particular situation, or if you're in a dependent style relationship, you need something to break out of it. As I always like to say, the Albert Einstein quote, he says the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So this is kind of like the classic dependent relationship scenario, right? You experience something, and then and it's not pleasant, and then you realize, okay, I've got to get out of this relationship, or I've got to walk away, or something's got to happen, right? And yet, um, if you feel yourself keep being drawn back into these relationships, like you get back with an ex who you know has not is not good for you, or if you keep getting drawn to the same kind of men, there's something that you need to change in order to break free of these dependent relationships. So in that TV series, The Maid, she comes from a very low socioeconomic background. Basically, her mother's, I think, had some kind of mental issue as well, and coming from a very unstable home where she, spoiler alert, recognized that her father was abusive to her mother. So her mother, they left their father when she was like 5. So seeing how there's not the healthy masculine role model in her father, and either the healthy feminine role model in her mother, you can kind of understand why someone goes through particular experiences in their relationships, right? It kind of makes sense. Um, I used to think in my life, oh, I keep doing these things, and it has no um, effect. Like everything I'm doing, and then nothing turns out. But it is the classic law of cause and effect, where you do something and it definitely does have an effect, but you might not see it. It might be just an internal shift, but you don't see it in your real world. So, how do you make those shifts that happen in your real world? Well, coming back to the TV series, so she's in an abusive relationship herself, in an emotionally abusive relationship, but she doesn't want to admit it to herself because she's like, oh, he hasn't hit me yet. So but it's classified as emotional abuse if it's threatening you, even though there's no physical harm done, but if you're not feeling safe in your own home, right? So she goes to a domestic violence shelter and she starts to get help. I guess the turning point was feeling like she could trust her ex again. So she goes back into that relationship and things get worse for her. Sometimes when you watch someone who's going through this, or if you've been through something like this yourself, you can't see when you're going through it yourself, you can't see, what's exactly happening. You just feel so trapped, and you're inside it, so you can't see what's going on, right? But the people around you can see. But if the people around you are going through the same situation that you are in, they'll think it's normal as well, and they won't be able to give you any kind of way to break free. So it's interesting because you kind of think, well, why doesn't she do that? Or why doesn't she do this? And I guess it all comes down to the lesson is your self-worth. And this character, the protagonist, had a talent in creative writing, and that was kind of her gift. And she'd kind of given it up, I think, because she'd fallen pregnant at a young age and wasn't able to go to uni and pursue her gift that would given her that self-worth and not be based upon other factors. So a big lesson, I suppose, is when they say, you need to change, you need to work on yourself, you need to do something different in order to get different results. What is that exactly? And I believe that is recognizing your own self-worth. So if you keep going back into these kind of dependent relationships, there's a part of you that's acknowledging that you deserve that kind of relationship, right? We only go towards things and accept things in our life, make those choices in our life, if we feel like we deserve that result. Does that make sense? So, for the example of the main character, I guess that she believed that she was only worth that kind of relationship because she was actually presented with the opportunity for a much better relationship. There was a guy who had liked her since, before she'd gotten together with the father of her child. And he was like a really decent guy, a really kind, really nice guy. Was very stable, had a stable upbringing as well. Like his parents are still together, and he was just really nice to her and just really liked her and wanted to help her. And she was kind of like rejecting him because she thought, oh, he just wants to rescue me, and I need to do this on my own. And there were parts of her that was very much like, wanted to do things her own. She was very determined, but we can only take so much before we kind of break down and go, oh my gosh, I just can't do this on my own. And so that having that level of self-worth helps you recognize and make better choices in your life, because all of a sudden you're like, no, I this is not good enough for me. I want the best and I deserve the best. And I've had clients come out of our coaching programs come out with like a very different sense of self-worth. And when we go through the relationship manifesto and we talk about how to create what do you actually want in your new relationship, and we create that in that relationship manifesto. And it's the main feeling of, I deserve this. I deserve a wonderful relationship with a wonderful man. And this self-worth issue, it's so interesting because we tie our self-worth to external things. I know that I did for a long time. Tied my self-worth to the job that I had, the kind of money that I made. I would compare myself to my friends. If they made more money than me, I would feel less worthy. And it's something to notice if you're tying your self-worth to the people that you're around, the things that you do. Notice how you tie that internal sense to an external source. And what we want to do is align your internal self-worth with who you are and just accepting that you are a special, unique person, a spirit, in a human body, having a human experience, and start to cut the ties with my self worth relates to something external. Another idea I want to bring into this about breaking out of dependent relationships, and well, let me just define this dependent relationships again. I talk about it in, if you've ever seen any of my free trainings, I talk about the love journey model and how we come into dependent relationships because we saw this in our parents and we inherited beliefs. They become limiting beliefs when they stop us achieving and having what we want. We inherit all these things from when we're growing up. And it's not necessarily just the beliefs of our parents, but it could just be something that someone said to us when we were children. And we created a meaning from that. We created a story from that. And that's what I learned from landmark education, that something happened and as children, we create a meaning out of it, going, "Oh, if the teacher yelled, that must mean I'm lovable." And it may not be that situation. It may just be the teacher had a bad day. The teacher had PMS. The teacher was trying to, had a mortgage breakdown, and all these things affected her yelling at the children in the class or something. So if you can start to see that those external events that happen in childhood don't necessarily mean what you meant it to mean, that can be also another way to shift the situation and recognize those things in the past that you decided as a child. Will you let children's thinking rule your adult decisions? And that's a different way of thinking, so you can start to bring yourself out of dependent style thinking. So back to the love journey model, when you have this kind of belief patterns that you grew up with, and you come to your adult life, and then you recognize, oh, I keep repeating these cycles. It's time to let go of that child, that child who made those decisions, those beliefs, right? So when you when you come into your adult life and you start having relationships that keep mimicking those of your parents or those of people who you grew up with in your childhood, that's when you notice, okay, I want to change, and I need to think differently. In the in that TV series, The Maid, when she's getting a job as a cleaner because she's like, that's the only job I can get, and she gets fired, but she starts to think differently, but then she gets fired. So it's like, oh, I was thinking differently, but then I got punished from it, right? So don't be afraid to think differently. I think it is a cause and effect. If you think differently and you get a worse result, yes, that can happen. But if you think differently and you get a better result, that can also happen. And it's just having a thicker skin of trial and error and trying those different ideas and thoughts and seeing which ones get you better results. So in the show, she gets fired because she starts to be a bit more entrepreneurial. She's like, well, I'm losing money because I lost this shift, and this is not fair. So she decides to take action, and then she gets fired from it. But then you kind of think, why doesn't she go for a different job? She's obviously got, she can be, she's a creative writer, so she can be a bit more creative and think of new ideas on how to get a better job that doesn't pay minimum wage. And just starting to think differently will also help you move away from this dependent style relationship and going, how can I create the kind of relationship that I want? Who is the kind of person who has the thoughts and behavior and action, who has the relationship that I want to be in? What do they think of? How do they behave? What actions do they take? What choices do they make, as opposed to my current thinking, which is getting my current results? So, as I said, this is like a quite a serious topic, if especially if you've had relationships that were very traumatic or abusive, and you really want to seek professional help to help you move through this. I think the only reason with therapy, though, as I've heard in the past, that a lot of people can get stuck in therapy because, yes, you do need to talk about the things and release those things from the past. But I believe if that's the only thing you're doing and you don't have a forward moving plan of how to go from those past experiences create a new future that's balanced and interdependent, and you don't have a plan on how to do that, then you're also going to get stuck um, in that therapy cycle, right? So I suppose professional help could look like life coaching as well, because I really believe in life coaching. I'm also a certified life coach because I believe from letting go in the past, we need to have the ability to set goals for the future. And that's how coaching will bring you in towards the future through a process of introspection, but also asking really good questions that help you find the genius within, because everyone has their own unique genius, that's what I love about coaching. And it assumes that each person has the answers within themselves already. So we take a lot of coaching programs, we learn from teachers, we get information from the internet and YouTube and gurus and all that sort of stuff. And we start to get new ideas, think differently, but we've also got to implement it, which is why a lot of us are drawn to taking coaching programs and hiring professional help, because it helps us start to implement those new ideas into our life. And in order to take action, sometimes you need to be held accountable, have someone hold your hand, and that's totally okay. That's another thing I recognize as well. Like within myself, I'm very independent, and for me to ask for help, also myself being an A-type personality, and I know a lot of my women out there who are A-types yourself, alphas, find it really hard to ask for help and seek help. And it's not a weakness to be able to connect with another human being, ask them for help. You can exchange services, or you can just pay them, find the money, because investing in yourself is worth it. It's never been a waste of money. And we need to interact with our fellow human beings because that's what we're meant to do. In the book, The Biology of Belief, I started referencing this a lot because it just really blew my mind. He talks about the cells in our body, that we are a community that make us a human being. And I always believe that things are fractal. There's We mimic things in our world, and it's like a microcosm within a microcosm. So the cells in our body are like a collection of it's a community, and each cell has its purpose and works together in unison to make you a human being that goes in one direction, right? Um, or if your cells in your body don't really want to hang out anymore, they'll shed themselves and they'll remove themselves from your body. And so that's the same thing with humans in the world. We each have a purpose to serve the greater community, and it's exactly like our cells in our body. And it's up to you to find your purpose for your life and figure out your own journey. We seek help from each other, and that's the cells in our body like working together to help each other for a common purpose. And the common purpose in humanity is really to help each other grow and change and grow our consciousness, ascend our consciousness, isn't it? Elevate the consciousness of humanity. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it touched on some more serious, deeper topics. If you have any questions, make sure you send me a DM on Instagram. My account is at Michelle Chung Coach. Make sure you send me some comments if you'd like to hear more on this kind of topic. Please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I also have a free training that you can go check out. The links are below. You can go register and check that out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.